So right now, I work at a company called SourceGraph. SourceGraph was founded 10 years ago, and our mission is to make it so that everyone can code. This is a very challenging mission, so that's why we are starting developers. Our focus with our products is to help developers be more productive. We started with code search. We have a really good code search product that is able to find stuff across a big code base. And in 2022, when ChatGPT erupted, we really saw the potential. And then right then and there, we started to build our second product, which is Cody, which is our AI assistant that helps developers be productive at their tasks. Before I dive into Cody and the things that we are doing, I'm going to set the stage and talk a little bit about the fundamentals about large language models and how they work. So when I talk about AI in this presentation, or LLMs, I'm actually talking about large language models. And when you hear about large language models, just think ChatGPT, or Gemini, or Claude, or whatever it is. The way that these things work is that they were trained on vast amount of data, pretty much the whole internet. So pretty much everything that humans have ever digitalized on the internet is the input for these models. They are really good at understanding language structure and flow within that content. And they are amazing pattern detecting machines. And what we get is something that's really good at syntax and structure of language. And I'm setting this point really clear because the way that these things work and during the training model is that they look at all of the data and they spread it across a multidimensional space, and they're trying to find the relationship between the concepts. So for example, the concept like Paris is going to be super close to a concept like the Eiffel Tower or just Eiffel. Why? Because pretty much everything that humans ever written about the Eiffel Tower is going to contain the word Paris somewhere in it. So there's a really strong relationship, as opposed to something like chromosome. Like chromosome is not like a direct relationship between Paris or the Eiffel Tower. And this is really important to know, because when you ask ChatGPT where's the Eiffel Tower located, it's going to provide a straight answer. You're going to answer Paris. But this is mostly like as a side effect of the way that they were trained, because it's statistically relevant to reply Paris. So they don't actually have factual knowledge. And this is the problem around hallucinations, like they make stuff up, they don't really know what they are talking about. And people are quite fast at dismissing this kind of technology because of this problem. And although that's fine and fair, I think they still play a big role in interaction design because they are really good with language. Even though when they make things up, they do it in a very convincing manner. So they are really good writers. And the fact that they are so good at language is exactly why they are so important for us designers, because language is the way that we humans communicate with each other. It's that thing that we used to talk, is how you are understanding me this morning, is how we think, and I think it's how we hope our interaction with computers would be, but we are not quite there yet. So let's look at a specific example. Let's see how large language models can turn ambiguity into product interaction. So let's start with the email use case. So email is a ton of text, and let's say that in this scenario there is a user that has like a completely flooded inbox that might or might not be me, and this user needs to figure out a way of finding the urgent emails within his inbox. One way of doing this is to set rules or filters or whatever it is. And the way that this works is within a rule, a user can say So if an email has a subject that contains the keyword urgent, then move it to the urgent folder. And on top of this rule, we can create more, but they always follow this specific deterministic path, like if this, then that. And this kind of works, and it's fine, but it's manually intensive. Like the user, first of all, they need to know that this is possible. They actually need to go on and have the work of creating these rules. It's very rigid. It's only going to answer by those rules, nothing more, nothing less. And it's going to lack a ton of context about the filters. Like it's going to be super deterministic about the things that it follows. So we as designers, we would probably hope to provide our users something like this, like zero setup, something that's super clever and is going to sift through the emails and it's going to provide the urgent emails for the user. The problem with this is that to build something like this in the code somewhere, we need to have something like this. If an email appears urgent, then flag it as urgent. And then we are right back at the original problem. Like we need to be specific about what an urgent email is. And this seems very simple for us in the audience. Like we kind of know looking at something that if it is urgent or not, but actually coming up with a set of rules that is going to catch everything is going to be super hard. But this is the thing that a system is going to expect. Like you need to specify the actual rules for this behavior to happen. And the large language model come into play, and now they are able to provide some sense of clarity about this human ambiguity and these human concepts into the loop. So in staying on the same use case, what we can do is grab all the emails of the user or just the ones in the input box and send this to a large language model either on the internet or local for privacy issues. It doesn't really matter. And we actually ask the model a very simple human request. Analyze all of these emails and please find anyone that has a sense of urgency. Nothing else. Like this is good enough and please provide the ID of the email and also the reason why you flagged it. And the cool thing is that this way of doing these things are going to give us results like this. Like for instance, let's look at this email. Hey, we have a major problem with the server. It's urgent that we fix this ASAP. Like anyone in this room would understand that urgent is actually a typo of urgent. But if you follow a straight rule filtering like I presented before, this is going to be missed. But because these models are so good with language, they are going to think like we do, and they are going to flag this stuff because they were also trained in typos and all of these dynamics. Another example, like in this case, the actual email reads, "Hey, we have a major problem. Oops, sorry. The client meeting is tomorrow. We still haven't received the final numbers. Can you please take a look into this?" Like anyone that has worked in a professional setting would classify this as urgent because there's a client meeting tomorrow and there is some work in progress that hasn't yet been delivered. Although when you look at the text analytically, there's no keyword around urgency here. Maybe tomorrow, but tomorrow might not be directly urgent. So again, the LLM was able to find and explain why this was an urgent email. So what I need you to understand is that ambiguity is now fair game for product interactions. Like we can pick on things that were kind of ambiguous or under an ambiguous definition for us humans, and now computers and systems can work with that ambiguity. Some examples would be recommendation, categorization. Categorization is actually the use case that we just saw, like categorizing an email. Explaining stuff, like all of this you can do with ChatGPT, summarization, and even content generation. Like all of these things are going to depend on what the user actually wants, and it's really hard to provide an interaction for the user that's completely deterministic under these conditions. So you need some sort of ambiguity and ambiguity understanding to provide this, and large language models are great for this. So going back to the assistant that we are designing, so what about Cody? We were so lucky that ChatGPT got so popular and it was so accessible because code is just a lot of text, pretty much. And the same way that the large language models were trained on human text, they were also trained on code written by humans. So by that training alone, they are also very good with code, which is pretty useful for us because we are trying to make the life of developers easier. So Cody is Cody presents three main feature groups. The first one is autocomplete. Autocomplete seems really simple. It's just the ability, moment of truth. We have a video. This is what you get by using beta products and actually like real stuff. Okay, I think we got it. So as the user, no, I'm actually seeing it here, but not here. Oh, there we go. So as the user is typing code, Cody works in the background and it provides code suggestions that the user is able to accept with just one keystroke. These code suggestions are aware of the context of the file and other things around the user. This is our most used feature because it's so easy to interact with, like it's just one keystroke away. And our developers rely on this multiple times during the day. It seems very simple, but behind the scenes it's really complex because there's a ton of things going around for us to provide the suggestion for the user. In this case, our UX focus, like the things that really matter for user experience, are output quality and latency. And I left this line here on purpose because for this feature in specific, because it's so simple in terms of interaction, engineers are really the product designers for this. Because it's their optimizations around the models and the background dynamics that really make the experience here so great. And I think engineers are great product designers as well. Maybe that's a topic for a different talk, but I left this here because they deserve it. As an example, like we recently changed the background model that serves the auto-completions. We are saving 100 milliseconds, and this is really important, and we can actually track like the improvement of milliseconds in the completion response versus the completion acceptance rate, and we can see that on the charts that it really plays a role. And just by changing models and these small improvements, we get a lot of more code accepted by the user. So this is just to say that sometimes in AI interactions, the tech behind it is really important for the user experience, so you need to be aware of it. Other stuff might actually benefit not so much as from latency, but actually from accuracy. So I'm going to talk about chat right now. So chat, as you'd imagine, is kind of similar to the way that ChatGPT does. And yeah, I don't think we are going, oh, we do, maybe. So the user is able to ask Cody questions, and Cody is going to reply back. We have screenshots, so we can see how this works. This is where we started back in January 2023. That was our alpha version. It was the beginning of everything. This is a screenshot from this week. Like, it's a bit different, and mostly of the things that you see change have to do with one single concept, which is transparency. Now, as a designer, when you are designing for AI, you are still designing for users. So you need to understand what your users value and what's the most important thing for them. And for the users that I work with, which are developers, they really care about transparency. They really want to understand what's going on behind the scenes. And we listen to that, and the way that we solve this is that we provide a ton of features around this concept. So when they are asking requests to Cody, they are able to be descriptive about the things that they are sending to the LLM as part of the context. Like, this is upfront as part of the request, and the users are able to attach what they want. In the beginning, we were trying really hard to be super magical and trying to avoid this concept. We wanted Cody to just work behind the scenes, and users would just type a vague request and you would get an amazing answer. That does not really work that well, and users actually want this ability to personalize the requests. Same thing for responses. Like, every time we provide a response for the user, we tell the user what we actually used to provide that answer. So in this case, it's a bunch of files, also an external website, and the public knowledge that's behind the model. Model transparency is also a very interesting one because, again, I'm going to talk about my users, the users that I work with, which are developers. They really care about the model that's behind the scenes. Like, they want this dropdown. If you go into our Discord, we have like community votes and polls about the ones that people use the most. Like, you have fans of Cloud GPT 3.4, 3.5, and ChatGPT 4.0. So it's really interesting. I would never expect this to be true because most, even engineers, don't really care what's the database behind an application or whatever, if it's Redis or Postgres. They don't care, but they care about the model. So they care about it. We disclose that in the UI, and they are able to select whatever they want. Another cool learning about AI is that every time that you're generating substantial amount of content with AI, you have to account for iteration. Like, it's super rare that the answer from AI is going to be right at the first time. If you played with Midjourney or even ChatGPT, you know that the first thing that you get back, it's probably not the right thing that you want, and you probably are going to do more requests or even change the original request. And accounting for that, we completely broke the concept of a conversation where you only have the input at the bottom. And we made every single interaction that happened before interactable. So you are able to go back, click on the thing that you sent, edit that thing, and that's going to change from then on. It's very similar to ChatGPT. You are able to edit previous messages, but those are behind the right click, and you need to click edit. We know that users want to do this, so we have the inputs available so they can scroll up and change something that happened in the past because they need this type of feedback cycle and interaction. Lastly, code edits. So in the beginning, a lot of our users were using Codey to actually write code. So they would ask something like, can you generate an example of a resolve or whatever? And they would get the answer. They would need to copy that and paste onto the editor. Nowadays, it's way more simple. Like, the user is still in Flow. They are able to summon a window with a shortcut, and they are able to type the request as they are coding, and they get the changes right away. I have another video. Let's see if this one works. Maybe not. But the idea here is that we abstracted this kind of interaction even more, and we have like one-click actions like document code, explain code, etc., where the user only clicks once. There's no request being done like typing, and they get the value back. And now this is the last section of the presentation, and this is really important because now I want to offer the other perspective. Even though I've been designing for AI for the last 2 years, and I think it's really great, the things that you are able to do with AI, maybe you as a designer, you might want to skip the AI or the large language model altogether if you don't need it. Like, not everything needs a chat interface. Jack talked about this, and I completely agree. If you are slapping a chat interface on your product just because of the hype, I think you are failing as a designer and in product strategy, so don't do that. AI is just another tool in our belt. So I think that if you are a great designer, and especially if you really understand the user and the industry that you are designing for, you might use or not AI in there. It's just another tool. Like, you need to be clever and understand if that benefits the user or not. You don't need to be caught on hype. Like, you don't need to be Microsoft because they are trying to promote Copilot a lot. And I understand, like, I'm not throwing shade to Microsoft. Like, there's a ton of money behind AI, and there's a lot of people that are actually interested in AI, a lot of like forces within a company to use AI. But again, if it doesn't make sense, you don't need to offer that to the user. So either if you are a complete skeptic about AI or think that AI is going to solve all the problems in the world, like most things in life, the answer is somewhere in between. And I don't think we have that answer right now. because we are all trying to figure out how this works. And this kind of reminds me of the mobile revolution. Like Rui just told a story about designing for mobile. When I got out of college, the first thing that I did as a professional was to design an application for Windows Phone. Windows Phone is not a thing anymore, but at the time, nobody knew. And during that time, there were a ton of discussions about the hamburger menu, like flat design versus skeuomorphism, etc. Like we as designers, we are trying to figure out how the thing evolved. And right now, it's pretty stable. And I think that we are able to look back into the mobile revolution and understand what we got back as a society. We got computing that's always available in our pockets. That was not true up until then. We have app ecosystems are really part of our lives. Like everyone knows what an app is. My parents know. Somewhere across the world, like everybody knows what an app is. The UX evolution was around touch. So touch UI is pretty much something that we got for granted nowadays. Like even little kids, they try to touch everything because it's so easy to do. We got this from this mobile revolution. And lastly, for the businesses, like nowadays we have billion-dollar businesses that are built on top of mobile. So what are going to be the changes in society that we are going to get from this AI revolution that we are trying to figure out and navigate? I have no idea. Like, ask me in 10 years, I don't know. The only thing that I can provide you, especially for the students, is some pointers around how to surf a trend and how to navigate something that is quite new and nobody really understands. First one is to embrace transformation. This is great advice for life in general. Critically evaluate AI implementations. Again, if you don't need a chat interface or a chat input box or whatever, don't build it. Be pragmatic about that. Stay curious and open-minded. Like, look what's going on, read the articles, play with the tools. Like, they are not going to bite you. Like, just explore. Consider ethical implications and biases. Again, you are a designer. You need to advocate for the user. If something is not serving the user or society in general, you need to act. So again, just be a designer. There's nothing like super fancy or nothing is going to change a lot with this AI revolution. And then collaborate across disciplines. Talk with engineers, understand what's going on behind the scenes, because that's going to help you understand where's the value for the user and what you can do as a product. So that was my talk. Thank you so much.